Welcome everyone to Robot Builders Night Virtual for January 21st. And we have a number of people queued up to report or ask questions or report on what they've been doing. And then we'll go into the open mic section of the meeting. So without further ado, Fernando, you want to ask a KiCad or KiCad, not sure how you pronounce that, some questions. Are you there, Fernando?
Okay. What is KiCad?
Oh, he says his mic isn't
PCB
working.
software.
Ah, okay.
Okay, do you think you can get it working and we can roll on with someone else in the meantime, Fernando? Okay, good. All right, let's jump down to Karim.
Oh, I was only going to go if Mickey is on, because it was to answer a question of his. He was wondering about hybrid diff steer or skid steer with a swerve wheel or Ackerman.
All right,
and we've done a robot like that, but it doesn't make sense to answer it if he's not actually on.
Yeah. All right. We'll defer that then. Let's roll on to Bruce.
Okay, hi everybody. Let's see, I've never shared before here. Let's see how to do the window. Do that window, share. So you should now see, yes, you're seeing a VS Code window.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm working on a robot, a lawn bot, if you will. Well, there's the Mobot. I call mine a lawn bot for various reasons. And so the goal here is to use ROS2 Jazzy. So that's the latest and greatest. Okay, so I'm prone to automate things. So I'm working on automating this process. Let's see if I can enlarge the text. There we go. And to automate this process, I'm using AI. And I'm using Aider, which is a code companion, a pair programmer that you can use. And that's an understatement because it's doing like all of the coding, not me. So some background when you're talking to AI, there's a prompt. That's what you tell it to work with, also known as context. And there was another definition. I forgot what it was. I was going to tell you. But let's start with some code. So I took some code off the internet. It was for the Adafruit LSM 303 DLH. Okay, but I happen to have a DF robot LSM 303 DLH, same part number. Turns out they work differently. And so I got it working. The key thing is that I changed this from Y to Z, and that made it work. But this is operational code from my Pi. Okay, so I have this labeled as the sensor code. Okay, and then also up here, I took this straight from the ROS2 Jazzy website. So minimal ROS2 Jazzy publisher code. Okay, so I'm dealing with the compass. So all it's going to do is publish. It's not going to, if you know about ROS2, it has publishers and subscribers. Okay, so this is the compass. all it's going to do is publish. Now, like I said, I'm using Aider, which I find extremely impressive as a pair programmer. This happens to be the prompt down here. And let's go down here. So the prompt I'm going to give it is a full file, which I've been following a gentleman, indie dev Dan Brisler, I think is his name. And so he teaches a class on Aider, which I highly recommend. Let's see if I'm showing up in the video. And so he does things right, in my opinion. So if you know Markdown, this is all Markdown code. And large language models understand Markdown code, as well as HTML and other formats. And so what I've done here at the bottom, I assigned some low-level tasks. And so I just tell it, okay, so these are ordered from start to finish. I don't think you have to put that. I think that LLMs understand that numbered lists are to be done sequentially. So here I just tell it, create this class. And then okay, so if you're familiar with Markdown, like here, you can put things like text, bash, Python, okay? So via Dan, I learned that you can put Aider in there. And then I just say, let me back up a little bit. I did these one at a time. And so I have 3 items on my list. And so this is a historical log of what I've done. But you could also just run it from scratch and it still works. But I did it one at a time. So, so I'm following the ROS2 directory structure. Okay, and so I wanted to create this file here to contain that class. So this capitalization does not matter, but you might appreciate it if you watch Dan's course, Indie Dev Dan. His course at PAIC. It's a paid course. And so I'm going to I'm telling it to create this file. And then I'm saying mirror the provided, and see up above, I had hashtags that said this phrase right here. And then to create the class, this. Same thing, but capitalized. And then because I didn't know what the standard Python naming convention was, I said, name vector 2 degrees to the private method per Python naming conventions, which adds the underscore to the beginning of the name. But you don't have to know. I knew that existed. I've been writing Python for 6 years and never had that memorized. I knew it existed though. And then I say this method will be public facing. And then this is some of the standard. So I've been generating code for several years using LLM. And these are 3 commands that I'm used to using. Type the args and return types, add doc strings, and comment the code. And so this is something I always do when I'm generating Python code. If I were doing C++, it would just be these 2, because you have to have the others taken care of for C++. And then I also put in here, add a comment specifying which packages need to be installed. So let's finish looking at this. Okay, so update my Docker file, add package dependencies for the class. But watch this. Where's my scroll bar? Not seeing my scroll bar. Okay, so something that I've been struggling with was getting my pip installs working within my Docker. So I'm also doing this within Docker. And it turns out that Ubuntu 24.04, the Docker container, and so subsequently the next layer on top of that, if you're using ROS2 Jazzy, also uses Docker 24.04. The Python packages are externally managed. And so you have to add, it took a lot of research to find this, but you have to add this argument, break system packages. It took me a long time to find that.
Ooh, that's scary.
Right.
So you're saying you had to break out of the LLM to find that? Or the LLM helped you find it?
ChatGPT to find this offline.
What LLM are you using under Aider right now?
Give me a second. So
Didn't mean to throw you off.
I'm using the O1 preview for the architect mode within Aider. And then I'm using Claude 3.5 Sonnet 1022, which is the latest for editing.
Have you, since you're doing this from within VS Code, have you tried any of the VS Code plugins for ChatGPT?
No.
I use one called Rubber Duck, so it's the same idea, right? So it's a pair programming kind of thing, except it's aware of the VS Code interface and automating things that way.
Okay. Okay, so does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so let's take a look at this class that it generated. Oh, and later in step 2, I asked it to do some updates to this code. But see, it took that original code that was just straight up Python with standalone methods, and it stuck it into a class. So I've been doing stuff like this with ChatGPT for over a year. So I'm used to doing this, and see, I got the doc strings, got the arguments type, the return type, code commented. And so I was very impressed with that. It did update the Docker file. Okay. Let's go back to the spec. In step number 2, I said add error checking and default return value. Is the general idea behind what I'm doing. And I said update this file. And see, something I noticed that devdan does is, in my opinion, his prompts are too low level. So here we have a higher level, more conceptual level prompt. This software is designed to run on boards such as Raspberry Pi series with GPIO ports. However, during development, it does not have access to GPIO ports, so some of the methods will fail. Update the code to print error messages and default values so that the code does not stop on my development machine. This is a seriously high-level prompt. Okay, and then we go back to the class, and it throws in the try and accept clause. And then in the get heading, okay, so in the initialization, it sets this class variable to true if it's set up correctly, otherwise false. So then down here, you know, I didn't do that. The LLM did this. But here, it does, if not, self.sensor available, print return 0, which is the default heading. And it has this try and accept. And so it goes on and it goes on and does it. So
Well, couple questions, Bruce. When you showed down in the bottom section the command beginning with Ada --01 preview, what is the connection between that and VS Code? Like, is it editing files and then VS Code shows them, or?
No, no, there's no direct connection. Oh, and one of the other things, there's no direct connection that I'm aware of, Paul.
Okay, so is it editing the files and then VS Code sees that the files have been modified, so it updates the display to show you what their new content?
Yes, and a point that I was going to make earlier in the definitions, I just remembered it, is that Aider understands Git repos. And it can care less what files you have in your directory structure. It's only looking at what's in your Git repo, and it does understand the .gitignore file if you are aware with that, if you're used to using Git. Okay, so I've been writing code nearly 50 years. So it wouldn't surprise me if I throw something out there that you aren't going to understand. I'm trying to be clear here. But I assume that you understand some basics. Okay, now let's go back to the spec file. Now my third step here is create ROS2 Jazzy publisher node. Okay, and so my Aider command here, create this file. Okay, so this is the ROS2 directory structure. Mirror this, which was part of the markdown. There was a hashtag followed by this string. Then use the sensor class. If the construction of the class fails, publish a default value. Publish the result of the get heading method to the sensor compass topic. And so ROS2 has topics. The first time I ran this, I did not have this line, and it printed it to a heading topic. And so I added this line saying specifically to publish it to sensor compass. Okay, I didn't want to use magnetometer because that returns X, Y, and Z. Okay, so I'm specifically taking the X, Y, Z values and converting it to a heading. Now, what shocked me is that when I ran that, it understood that there were other files that needed to be edited. And it said, would you like me to add this file to chat? Like, well, it already told me that it needed to change it. And I said, I told it yes. And then there was another file. Shall I add this one to chat? Yes. And it did. And which is part of your prompt. So I added this line, and then when I ran it again, it said, oh, I've already updated everything. I don't need to specifically update. You don't need to tell me that.
Where is the interactivity happening, where the back and forth with the thing?
That must be the end of my buffer there. So it's working on that class. Okay, so drop these files from the context. Clear, that's clear the chat history so that it doesn't repeatedly go through the LLM. Then I added that class back in. It says that it did. And then here is where I told you I ran this command without the update and create other necessary files. So this was the first time I ran it. This is the terminal window, by the way.
I see. So this is the interaction that's happening in the terminal after you've typed Ada -01 preview, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, and these are Ada commands right here. Drop, clear, add. Okay, and then there's the Ada prompt. And then I cut and paste this to it.
I see. So you've got this spec, the spec.md that you created that kind of outlines your thoughts about how you want it to go about this, and then you take sections of that and paste it into the interactive window. Is that how it works?
Well, what you can do, so I told you how I built this file, but what I can do is delete everything, go back to how everything was, and then I can do a Control-Alt, copy, and then I can just throw this at the prompt, and then it'll redo everything.
Okay, thanks. I'm just trying to understand the flow and what talks to what and all of this. It's interesting.
I think it's just incredibly amazing.
And
The fact that it picked up on these other files that needed to be changed. Like,
so it's changed setup.py and package.xml for you?
exactly.
Wow. Now that's nice.
Exactly, Paul. And so it knew that it had to come in here and add the install requires.
Oh.
And then it add, see Paul knows ROS2. And it added these entry points.
Nice.
Isn't that nice? I wasn't even expecting, I hadn't got that far in my automation. Thought I was going to have to explicitly tell it that, but I didn't.
Wow.
What was the other one? Package? Oh, so yes, it picked up these things.
That's nice because those things are always such a pain to do.
Correct.
So now we don't have to be a programmer, we just have to be a writer.
Exactly. So it's about thinking. It's about thinking at a more abstract level.
That's very interesting. That it's because that's a lot of the trouble with getting into ROS. ROS2 is all the other stuff that needs to be created just beside the program that you're trying to run.
And
Yeah.
not only that, where is it? I'm not seeing the file. Oh, I added it to the README. It then gave me, sorry. It then gave me step-by-step instructions on how to test the node.
Now, did you run the ROS2 package create? There's a whole string of arguments that come after that to set up the directory and with the template files in it for it to get started in.
Yes, and those are in my README file, but they're also right here. So I'm in the context section. Previously executed commands. So you're telling it what you've done to give it some context. So CD into the ROS2 workspace source. Then I did this, and see it's gleaning information from that. And then I did the CD up into the workspace, and then colcon build.
Wow.
So when we're having a conversation with someone, they say words, it triggers little thoughts in our brain and helps our brain focus on whatever. The same is true with AI and LLM. If you say things, it kind of activates literally the neuron, and that helps it think about the problem.
And is it maintaining this MD file, or are you doing that?
No, I built this.
Okay.
Now, I started from this template, okay, which came from Indie devdan's course.
Can you say who that is slower so I can write it down or maybe put it in the chat so people can go back to it? And find out who this devdan is? Or
Indie, like Indie 500.
Indie devdan?
Can you put it in the
Yeah,
chat?
Dev as a developer.
If you
Put
could
it
put
in
it in
the
the
chat.
chat, that'd be great. Or if that's not convenient, we can. But I know I'll get it wrong.
I
Excuse
put
me,
the
Paul.
YouTube channel in there, Hardy.
Excuse me, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim.
Check Discord AI section. You sent a post or something about Indie devdan.
Jim, you faded away. Your audio disappeared.
There's
Hello?
notes about it in the Discord on your AI channel in Discord.
Oh,
And
Right.
the YouTube is posted in
For the
chat.
viewers of this video, YouTube and then search at Indie devdan. The guy's quite good.
oh,
And I'm going through his paid course. And I've been studying AI for 5 years now and doing code completion for 5 years, 4.5 years. pair programming effectively for actually a year and a half.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Bruce,
Somebody
that
on
was really
Discord asked,
insightful. Thanks for sharing.
you bet. Somebody on Discord asked for an intro, and I did on Discord. This was anything but intro.
Hey Bruce, what kind of a rep rate, you know, are you able to read the compass with, and are you doing anything else at this point besides just reading the compass, or?
Oh, this is my first node for my project. I was going to do a differential controller and a PWM controller, and it's like let's start with the simplest use case, and let's just do a publisher node. And I have a compass. I have I think like three sensors sitting here that will be publisher nodes. And it's like, let's start with the simplest, learn how to do this one, then I'll create another spec for do a publisher and subscriber.
Okay, so you don't have like, I was kind of curious how often you can actually read the compass. Is it like, you know, kind of rates that you know, you need to control a PID loop with?
He
20
asked
times
for
a second, 50
he
times
asked
a
for
second.
10 times a second in his code.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, and so the Adafruit code was rigid. The DF robot code is for what's that other little device? Not Pi. Starts with an A. You did this
Arduino?
Adreno. The DF robot code is for Adreno, which you can't just easily port to Pi.
Right.
So I looked up the part number. I found Adafruit code for the same part number. But what I found is that on the DF robot version, this gave you compass headings. And so I changed swapped out the Y magnetometer reading for the Z.
Right.
So that way it worked
You're
like
getting
this.
like a yaw output.
And so I troubleshot that with ChatGPT. It's like, why is it giving me headings this way instead of this way?
Yeah.
And I went through troubleshooting with ChatGPT. I use AI a lot.
A lot of people use it first. AI first coding is pretty
Oh,
standard.
and Aider. I just watched the video. This guy was using Cursor, and Aider is just so much better from what I saw in that video. And Aider can understand all of your files and your Git repo, and yeah, apparently Cursor is limited somehow, some way on how many files it can look at.
Cool.
So that's my show and tell.
Thanks.
You bet.
Thanks. That was awesome. Let's see. Fernando, do you have your mic working yet?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. So why don't you go next? Doug, are you online? Doug's muted.
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Okay. So I just had some quick questions about KiCad, and then PCB design. We're making pretty much this. So 3 servo connectors, I think they are, and then this 4-pin JST, I think. Because right now it's pretty jank. So we've been trying to make a printed circuit board for it. Let me screen share. Can y'all see?
Yep.
Right. So first problem is whenever entered into JLCPCB, it says that this is a 4-layered board, even though it's only supposed to be 2. I'm guessing I messed this fill up in some way, but I'm not entirely sure. And I just wanted a kind of quick review or check of my work that I've done for the wiring and stuff, if possible.
I guess the first question I have is, you say you didn't mean to have a 4-layer board and you had a 2-layer board?
Yeah.
That's what you wanted?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I'm just curious, what company are you going with?
JLCPCB, since that's what most people in the DPRG
JCL?
code for.
PCB?
Yeah.
I thought the default was two-layer. The price is the same, but I thought the default was 2 layers. You must have clicked on something.
Yeah,
No, it
Order.
auto detected 4 layers from this 2-layer design. Like all we did was upload the Gerber files, and it reported back that this was 4 layers.
But you didn't use 4 layers.
No.
Okay, so you must have, so somewhere in your KiCad, you've turned on layers that you're not using.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what that is. Can you look at the design and see, did it properly handle the 4 layers? Did it, otherwise you're going from the top to the bottom and not going from the first layer to the second layer or third layer to the 4th layer? Can you tell by looking at the board? I can't because it's really small.
Right.
It's coming in a pretty low resolution. You're on the
Yeah.
far right side. Your list of layers or features is that's very low res for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I only have a front and a back layer. I don't have any other layers. There's whatever LN or IN CU is, the copper layers. But I don't think those matter. Not entirely sure.
Now,
Okay.
what are those?
Your routing was so complex. It looks like you've got 4 layer to layer vias in there. The 4 dots right where your cursor is.
Yeah, this is something we're going to change. We're just going to move it all to the back, especially since the big 6 volts going through the small via there.
Yeah.
I did do this fill, since apparently that's something good to do because a lot of copper would be removed. I'm not sure if I did it correctly, and that could possibly be causing.
That's a little tricky, but once you get it, it's okay. That doesn't, just looking at it from the top, looks like you got, just at this picture, because you got the X on the ground lead, it looks like you're filling in ground on the top.
Yeah.
You'd have to flip it over and look at the backside to see.
It's got ground on both the front and the back.
Okay, but can you? Can you do a screen capture of just the layers in the corner and then share that with us? Because like I can't read them at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's too much. But you should only have 2 copper layers. It shouldn't be 4 layers. And I can't remember and I thought it was something like F and back or B.
Aren't front and back? I think those copper layers aren't doing anything. The ones labeled CU.
I don't believe I use them.
So I'm just saying is, I want to say KiCad on by default is 2 layers too. So
There, I sent a picture in electronics
yeah.
and on the Discord.
Oh, wait a minute. Just give me a second. Gotta start Discord. I'm not on my normal computer, so I'm having some issues with. Get this.
Was this design copied from something else?
No, it's just based off of our wiring for a little prototype that we did.
Oh, okay.
But did you start from a template file?
How do you mean?
People publish KiCad or KiCad templates
No.
for specific vendors and things like that. So there's like one for PCBWay. There's another one
Oh,
for.
yeah, all the settings are right for JLC.
But did you start with a template or did you just build it from scratch?
I just built it from scratch.
Well, somewhere you got those. It looks like those are copper layers. I mean, what if can you delete those layers? What will happen to your design if you do that? Will it break anything? Apparently, it will break something.
Show all copper layers, hide all.
But front and back are the copper.
Yeah.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Aren't they supposed to be the copper?
I don't know if tying it to ground made it. It looks like that one, the furthest left signal is tied to ground. Well, it looks like several of them are.
They're doing a common ground because they've got so many ground output connectors requirements, but they've only got one pin going back to the main board.
Oh.
One wire. So they're sharing power and ground.
Uh-huh. So you're just trying to beef it up with the plane. Huh?
Yeah. Probably a ground plane for the ground. And then in variations of this, probably we'll take 2 wires and share 6 volts on them to go parallel back to the main board. But I don't see, this is a simple enough feature set where you could do it in 1 layer.
Yeah. Well, 2 layers always makes it easier, especially if you're going to get it fabricated.
RJ45, is that an Ethernet connector?
Yep.
Yeah, especially if you're burying signal wires between ground planes, you can get. Isn't that like a microstrip design? You can really change the bandwidth of what those traces can handle when you do that.
Well, we're not really concerned about bandwidth because these are just running RC servos and I2C connection.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Is it possible that some of the components, particularly the RJ45, have pins with more than 2 layers on the component?
I'm not sure. Whenever I click the hide ln2.cu, it does remove those extra outlines around all of the parts. I'm not sure if that's important or significant. Sorry.
Maybe this is a question for Doug because I don't know how components work in KiCad, whether they have pads that would go on different layers. I'm just wondering if that connector is introducing the extra layers because of some pads on intermediate layers that it assumes exist.
Those are just through hole pins on the actual part. I don't know how the component is designed though. Was this in the library?
Yeah.
The brown signal lines that go to the RJ45 connector, can you bring those up to a layer so that you don't have the vias?
Yeah, we're planning on just all these cables that are in the front layer, just moving them back to the bottom layer.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then you could probably eliminate a layer or two, right?
Yeah, something's being picked up as extra layers, and I think it's those two that say CU on them. It's like those must have been there from the start. Did you manually add front and back, or was
These were here from the start, front and back.
all
And that's
four-
what I've
all
always
four
had.
of those? All four of those were from the beginning?
Yeah, I used to have more before, more layers before, but then I used the JLC auto settings or whatever from that GitHub library, and then it reduced it to these.
In your layer list,
Yeah,
what is-
okay.
what is
The
what
IN1 copper and the IN2 copper, I think, are internal. So I think it's like front, internal 1, internal 2, and back.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if you make everything disappear except IN1 and IN2, what do you have?
Oh, wow. So it was all internal.
Oh, those are on.
Okay, I think what you did is you clicked on the wrong level when you were doing some of the design.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's easy to do, but I think that's what you had. So now hit the turn on front and turn off internal 1 and internal 2.
I think it's already got them off.
Oh, then yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. There's doubles.
Okay, well,
So you must have accidentally hit a 4-layer starter somehow.
Mhm.
yeah.
'Cause
But I think that's what those are. That's why you got a 4-level board, is those two internal levels.
Okay.
You know, if I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm not in good shape. Did it? So let's. Do you have your schematic? Can we see your schematic? Just
Let me just turn all these back on. Before I forget. I don't know. Okay. Not schematic yet.
Doug, is it fairly easy? I don't remember with KiCad, but can you like click on a path and bring it to another layer easily? Would that be the easiest way to fix that?
I'm unsure. I just started relearning how to use this after a few years of not using it.
well, that looks okay. I don't see any real problem with your schematic.
Is there a reason the other two servo connectors aren't on there? Does it?
What do you mean these?
You don't have S1 and S2. You do have S1. What?
S3. That's
You
good.
do. Okay.
So what type? Of? Well, okay. I'm not. I tell you what. If you can talk to Karim and get it, email me just zip it up and send it to me. I'll take a look at it, and we won't spend everybody's time on it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And that way, we can see if I can help you at all on it. I'm sure that's what you did.
Yeah.
And what connector? Oh no, that's okay. Are these just servo connectors? Are you going to have special connectors, like clip off the DuPont connectors off the end and have separate? Oh, okay. You're going to just slide them on. I got you.
Either this or we're going to just connect the wires like they are here. We haven't fully decided yet, but those are the two options we're going for.
Those slots in the board are just for like zip ties for strain relief.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. No, that works. I think you're almost there. I mean,
is there a simple way to just elevate a feature from one layer to another?
I've never had the problem, but I believe it can be done. One of the
AI
things,
will tell us.
Yeah. One of the things that you can do that you might consider is to reflect all. It's just good practice is to reflect your like your power lead, the different widths that you want for your traces. Like if you want power to be always a certain trace, put it into the design rules. Okay, and then that way you don't have to worry about it. It'll automatically space it that way.
I think I set that up with the net classes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they automatically get their spacing and size.
Okay, cool. Well, how do the? Okay, never mind. I know why. Okay. Just send me the files. I'll take a quick look and see if there's anything I can help you with. And like you said, Karim, I'm sure even Google could answer that question if I took the time. So let's see here. And a trace.
It's been a while since I've done it, but I think you can right click on it and select and do a right click and change the layer or your wire or whatever you want.
Yeah, it sounds something like that. And it says, and the answer is yes. In KiCad, you can easily move a trace from one layer to another by simply selecting the trace, switching to the desired layer, and continuing to route it.
But you have to select the trace. Oh, yeah.
Trace?
I see what he's doing.
Yeah, okay.
Would these be considered traces? They're the surrounding thing for the through holes.
No, I don't think
so.
Those aren't traces. They're footprints.
Or paths.
You might just need to delete that and replace.
Oh, actually, it doesn't let me do that.
Yeah.
But didn't it say to select the traces?
Well, we got to find out what layer those traces are on.
Change layer there.
I thought I was on internal 1 or internal 2.
They're on 1.
On 1?
Yeah, it doesn't let me delete these.
You can always delete it. You just got to get it selected. And,
Well, you got the wrong. You're selected the wrong layer.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. Weird. Okay.
all right. Let's just send any things and we can see what we can do.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Doug.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chuck.
This is
All right.
just an observation, but I'm just curious. Have you had a look at the current drain on that 6-volt power line and ground for 3 servos? You might be overloading what you can comfortably put through an RJ45 connector pin.
Or trace at a certain width, yeah.
Well, I'd worry about the connectors. RJ45s are a pretty light duty connector.
I want to say they can handle an amp or something like that.
And that's what I just looked up, Doug. Yeah. Now you're running 3 servos there. I don't know whether you're ensuring they don't run all together. My experience with servos, standard size servos, is they can easily draw an amp each. So I don't know how you're managing that one.
There's 2 LiDAR counter rotating continuous rotation servos that when they're running, they only run for about a half a second.
Okay.
And they're not really high current. There is one elbow servo that can draw a little bit more current. So we are concerned about. That's why we want to double up one of the pins.
Yeah, that's probably wise.
Yeah.
You have the problem of the return current as well. So
I know.
Double up 2 pins, but I don't know how you're going to do that.
Well, technically the robot's grounded, but that's not really a great return path.
I know certain electricians who would shudder at that thought.
But
it's like a car.
Yeah, right. Negative ground on a car, You
might consider capacitors too, a small capacitor added to this or something.
Oh.
Between your power supply and ground.
Yeah, that's like these
smoothing.
Crappy little battery boxes with these super thin wires on it.
I like them when they start glowing red. I love
glowing red, yeah.
They don't spring as good after that.
On a platform that has 4 motors on it, you could see a 1/2-inch ripple on the 12-volt supply. And
okay, Paul, who's next?
Me.
Okay.
So I got couple of things. Just was trying to overcome a minor technical problem, but I'll move on. So first, I forgot to do DPRG news at the beginning of the meeting, so I'll insert that here. Just a reminder to everyone on the call and anyone watching that we will have our annual meeting on this Saturday at the Dallas Makerspace, and starting at 10:15, something like that. And the first order of we'll start off with the 2024 review, President's review of what went on in the club. Lots of stuff went on, and so it'll be fun to talk about. But then we'll have the election of officers. I did send out an email to the list asking people to vote in advance of the meeting, so that way our election officer can have all the spreadsheets checked off, and maybe we'll even have the vote, have a quorum by the time we hold the meeting. But we will have a vote at the meeting as well. So after election of officers, then we'll have a discussion of the proposal to change the bylaws to replace the librarian position with a IT officer position. And if the members, if the paid up members present, members in good standing present, both virtually, online, and in the room, decide that they are okay with taking a vote on that, then we'll take a vote in the room, and then there'll be a 2-week window for people who weren't at the meeting to vote on that, and then we'll roll on with depending on how the vote turns out. But what we're really trying to do is And I'll just, let me think, just share something that that the board considered and what motivated this change. Here we go, and I'll share this. Okay, are you seeing the officer roles? Let me make it bigger.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. This is Zoom.
Yeah, there's some fine print for you.
Okay, so I made a list of the responsibilities of each officer drawn from the bylaws, and the one that is of interest to this discussion is the librarian role, which is really kind of reflects an older time when the club, when one of the main values the club offered was lending specialized tools, software, data books back in the days before all data was online. And so the librarian needed to maintain records of loaned materials, enforce lending policies, and maintain and safeguard the library. That's sort of pretty much mostly gone by the way. There's still a little bit of it left, but not much. Not enough to really justify having a DPRG officer assigned to that role. Then we looked at white space duties that someone does, but they're not called out in the bylaws. And that's okay to have duties that aren't called out in the bylaws. You don't want the bylaws to be so specific and inflexible that they try and nail down everything. But there was this big clump of responsibilities centered around IT. So maintaining the systems themselves and their services. So we've got a website, an email distribution list, a chat server, a Facebook account, YouTube account, Google Workspace account, membership, and services, including Google Meet and GitHub and Meetup, lots of them. And maintaining the content on them as well, YouTube content, and then security and privacy policies and practices, and then other things like organizing competitions, outreach, new members, but there's this big clump of IT centric stuff, and it seemed to us that that's a main value that the club offers to members these days, and to non-members, and it deserves board level visibility through an IT officer, that would be a better way to spend our very few officer roles than librarian. So that's really what motivated the proposal to eliminate the librarian role and replace it with an IT role, with an IT officer role. So are there any questions on that brief description of what we're proposing for a bylaws change? Okay, not hearing anything. So I am asking people who are not going to be present, or even if you are going to be present, to vote online if you can, so we get things lined up as far ahead of as we can. And you can vote online using a link that I send out in email that will take you to a Google form. It should be the easiest way to get to vote, because you just click on the link and then you click on, you know, accept the nominees or don't accept them, and away you go. Let's see. Okay, that's all the DPRG stuff. So, but if you can make the annual meeting, the other topics that we'll have will be, we always have a brainstorming of what do we want to do for 2025? What do we, you know, are there areas we want tech talks on? And is there anyone who feels they can deliver a tech talk at a monthly meeting? You know, that's, or anything at all really about things that you like, that people like or don't like about the way things are running. And then we'll have pizza for lunch, and after lunch there's about four or five of us who are going to be panelists on a smart cameras panel and talk about cameras that we have experience with. So that's a monthly meeting. Attend virtually or in person if you can. We'd love to see your smiling face in person. But if you can't do that, you're always smiling, Ray. You're just a happy guy. If you can't do it in person, please do feel welcome to come in virtually, and we'll try and have someone looking after the virtual phone line. And okay, any questions before I move on to what I really want to show off?
Yeah, I had one. There was let's see if I can get this to do this window. What's going on here? Share. It's not letting me share. Window. Never mind. It's not working. I don't know why it's not letting me share.
What was the issue, Ray?
Oh, there was a candidate for that position that you were talking about to replace the secretary, and it was the Aria from the Consumer Electronics Show. She was, you know, kind of the head of a robot, and I was just gonna, you know, let you guys know that. So.
Yeah, well, we'd love to have that, but probably not going to happen.
Oh, okay, all right. She'd understand, I think.
Yeah. So you might want to pin me for this so you can see. Minibot is actually powered up. Its LiDAR has got this pretty blue spinning thing on it. And it's got some yellow TT motors and a battery underneath, and a caster. These are quadrature encoders with Hall effect pickups on the end of them. Thank you, Doug, for that recommendation.
That's your 3D printed frame, right?
That's my 3D printed chassis. Got a oh, look at that. You can see the LiDAR. Awesome. Oh, yeah. I was wondering how to detect that. Excellent. Let's see. There's a Oak D light on the front, which I'm not sure. It doesn't appear to me you actually need. And then the WaveShare general driver for robots is a hat on top of a Raspberry Pi, and there are two connectors. Let me see if I can shine a bit more light on this. Two USB connectors. It's not helping much, is it? Going between the Raspberry Pi and the general driver for robots. One carries LiDAR data, and the other is the main comms from the Raspberry Pi to the ESP32 on the general driver for robots. This is now running Linorobot software, and I actually got it moving for the first time today. So I'm going to show that, and I hope it won't suffer the same fate as PyDog did when PyDog took a dive off my desk here. But so I've got the teleop keyboard teleop app running on the Raspberry Pi, ROS and all of its agents and nodes and everything is also running on the Raspberry Pi. And then MicroROS is running on the ESP32 and sending ROS messages up to the Raspberry Pi. So let's see, we'll just, oops. Okay, so got disconnected there. So it's not going to be very impressive, just a little forwards and backwards action.
You're awfully close to the edge there, Paul. There you go. A little margin of safety, maybe. So
Tempting fate.
That's right.
That's right.
First robot death by rum and coke.
Oh, okay. I've got to restart all of this stuff. Actually, I'm going to. I'll share that in a bit. For some reason, I lost my network connection, so.
So Paul, do you still need your laptop, or is that just for the teleop?
The answer to that is a little more complicated than I expected it to be. I'm actually SSHing into Minibot to run the teleop, both the ROS services and the teleop. So the laptop is only serving as a SSH client.
So it's serving as a controller, basically. Because I was saying you have micro ROS and ROS on the. Whoa.
It's a quick little bugger. Yeah.
Okay, and let's see, it should be possible to make it turn, I think.
Oh, brave. Yeah, hey, nice. So
and I'm going to share my terminal through which I'm running all of this. Let's see, it should be this one, hopefully. Hopefully, which one is it? Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Oops. I didn't mean to do that. I think. Did I?
So you are playing around with this just to do slam, primarily, not for a contest, or?
Well, I think you could incorporate SLAM into 6CAN in a reasonable way, because I think once you give it a map of the arena, of the 6CAN arena, then it should be able to drive and avoid cans on its route to the far goal, then turn around and go fetch the nearest can and then bring it back. And there's a point in there where I think I'll want to turn off its route planning and just drive straight up to the can and grab it, using regular old ROS with maybe feeding back off of the LiDAR to know when I've gotten close to the can. But I think it could bring some benefits to 6CAN. Okay, so let's see.
When you get a chance, what does the pi hat do?
Say again?
What does the pi hat? You have a hat on the pi.
Yeah.
What is it called, and what does it do?
Motor control.
It's got the motor drivers and an interface to the LiDAR that's mostly passed through. There's a little bit of something in there. I'm not sure if it drives the PWM to the LiDAR. It feeds voltage to the LiDAR. And I think maybe some level conversion, but it's pretty much passed through from the LiDAR's 4-pin JST connector to a USB-C connector that feeds. Oh, it's got the USB to serial to USB chip on it that takes LiDAR serial data and turns it into USB that then is given to the Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
Is it powered exclusively over the USB-C cables?
No, the battery feeds into. Let's see. Let me get this window out of the way so I can see what I'm showing. The battery feeds into this connector, and on the general driver for robots on the hat, and then that feeds 5 volt. That produces 5 volts. And Doug, last meeting you asked about a BEC. So there's a 5 amp BEC circuit on the robot driver board, and it feeds 5 volts down into the Raspberry Pi, as well as out to the LiDAR and the camera and anything else. Let's see. So all I'm doing here, I'm running on Minibot here, just SSH into Minibot, and just run teleup twist keyboard, and that produces a command vel, publishes on command vel, and then this is the node that starts everything. Again, I'm just SSH'd into Minibot, and if I run the Minibot alias, it starts up launches the hardware with the LiDAR node and the micro-ROS agent and joint state publisher and all of that jazz. And at that point, you can hit the L key and just make it drive around. So the next step, I'm now up to getting SLAM, turning on SLAM, but I've got a problem of I can't get into this stupid ROS2 stuff, ROS2 DDS stuff. I can't get my laptop to talk DDS to the Raspberry Pi. So that means I can't run RViz on my laptop. And so I was trying to, let me think, I'm trying to run it through SSH -X. So in another terminal, let's see, actually I should be able to, let me just, since I'm sharing this window.
Are you running LSW for Windows?
No, my desktop is Ubuntu.
Oh, okay, good.
So let's see. I'm going to, so from my laptop, I'll SSH -X to minibot. And
What is -X?
what is what?
-X?
-X means send X windows back to the host over the SSH connection.
Okay.
And what I had working before I rebooted the robot, and so unfortunately this is probably going to fail, was to launch RViz on the Pi, which is horribly slow because it seemed, oh, how about that? It's going. All right, it's starting up. So, okay, so this is, so you get tons of stuff with Linorobot, and among it is a whole bunch of config files that you can edit to make changes to the robot dimensions, and the Linorobot stack supports 4 types of robots: differential drive, skid steer. So Karim, it ought to be able, it theoretically would handle the AT Pioneer. What's it called? A holonomic, 4-wheel holonomic platform, and Ackerman steered robot. I was surprised that they claimed Ackerman steering, because I didn't think Ross's path planner didn't used to be very good with Ackerman, but they claim that. So,
And what package handles these diff drive, etc.?
I'm sorry, say again.
What are these capabilities built into, like differential drive and skid steer?
So it has a config file where you state the type of drive.
What has the config file?
The Linorobot suite of packages.
Awesome.
And
I need to look at.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. But I think it's not going to let me share this window. Maybe. No, it's done. It's not letting me share the window. I wonder if I can point my camera at it and show it. Just move my window a bit here and see if I can get something that you see. And it's using an IMU. So I got, they support like half a dozen different IMUs, many common flavors of differential drive motor controller, where you have like NA and NB and a PWM, or you PWM the NA and NB, different flavors of that, and an ESC motor controller.
Right.
And
Yes, and I have an IMU also.
sorry?
I have an IMU also,
Yeah.
and it's a drive controller. I need that with PWM.
Okay, so I'm going to drive it now, and hopefully we'll see it move in RViz. There was some lag. There's a considerable lag before, but I don't think RViz updated. It was updating before, and I can't see why. And the other thing, it was using an IMU, and when I rotated it, RViz was rotating, and that's not happening. So there's some things that I don't understand about it yet.
Paul, are you using a Pi 5 or what are you using on it?
A Pi 4.
Okay.
So that's what I had. It's coming along.
Nice. Thank you. I'm going to have more questions later.
Great job, Paul. That's a gold
Yeah,
star.
so gold star. Gold star. I'll wave my own gold star. So yeah, but I've been tracing the origins of this this Linorobot package, and it's a bit like digging through archaeology. It was created in about 2016 by an engineer in Singapore by the name of Juan Miguel Gemendo, and a lot of his name is on a lot of the code. And he did it under ROS1 and ROS1 Kinetic, and then at some point a group of people ported it to ROS2, and it's been around. It's been going through from ROS2 Foxy to Humble is the latest officially supported version. But a guy by the name of Thomas Chu, who lives in Taiwan, has taken a really strong lead in migrating it to Jazzy. So I'm running Ubuntu 24.04 and Jazzy on the Raspberry Pi, and that's what was running the software that I just demonstrated. And there's a lot of really good step-by-step, here's how you build it, or here are the things that you should do to bring it up, kind of stuff in the on the web page. I think you're going to ask something, Bruce. Let's see. So I'm going to share out this window and just have a quick walk down what you there are two main repos involved. There's the Linorobot repo and the Linorobot 2 repo, which is ROS2. and Linorobot 2 underscore hardware, which is the micro ROS and hardware related stuff. So in the micro ROS and hardware related repo, there's a wiki that has, oh, and I actually submitted my first pull request to this, and let's see if it's open. One open and one closed. Ooh, I bet it got closed and merged because I found a bug in the motor test. Yeah, so I had a pull request and it looks like it might have been merged. Cool. So anyway, Thomas Chu is very active in this repo, and so it's got, like, it starts off with a recommended workflow: install the software, test micro ROS agent connection before you even wire and build a robot. And I think that's such a smart thing to do. You know, make sure that your Raspberry Pi running ROS can talk to micro ROS on your ESP32 or whatever processor microcontroller you're using. Then you connect the IMU and run the test sensors, and then, you know, gradually bring it up. Then you design your robot and customize the configuration file, build the robot, test the encoders and motor and the sensors and the LiDAR. Then you launch the robot bring up. I'm down through past all of this. Use a keyboard to move the robot, which I just showed. Then I may or may not do the magnetometer. Then you launch SLAM and save the map. Then you launch navigation and save the map. And so here are all the sections of the wiki, and it goes in tremendous detail about how to do each step, with examples of how to do it for a Pico, a Teensy, an ESP32, and it just goes on and on. This is the board I'm using, but they support, really it was made to build your own robot from ROS supported drivers that, and they provide kind of a canned environment with easy to modify configurations to set it up. So they have you check the IMU and
Paul, you're not sharing.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Well, maybe it's excessive to go down the whole web page because it's a big page, but I can paste the link to this particular, the wiki page, which has oops. Come on. Don't do that. Okay, this is a link for it. Raised hands, Bruce and Tom.
Bruce was first.
Okay, so I think you just took care of the first thing, was to post the links, but that's not showing up as a link on mine. Paul, what you just posted, is that supposed to be a link?
Sorry, that's thank you. That's like wrong. I don't know. That's completely wrong. Let me try again. Hold on. There we go.
There, that looks great.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the second item I wanted to bring up was Docker containers. Okay, so I think some people here are familiar with the gentleman on the YouTube channel Articulated Robot. And so he suggested using Docker containers. And the nice thing about the Docker containers, I meant to mention this earlier, is that you can run like ROS2 Humble in one container, which is what I plan on doing for my RP LiDAR A2, because there's already a functional repo that does that. And then anything that I'm writing new, I plan on running under Jazzy. And so I'm probably even going to have separate containers for various sensors. So you can just shut down one magnetometer and then spin up a different one. And so, and in general, the key thing in software development is you don't want things all tied together. And when I was showing my stuff and somebody went, ooh, about the brake system packages, yeah, that's one of the reasons why you want things separate. So if that is bad, then I'll have to figure out how to deal with it. But separate Docker containers, you can run different sensors, you can run different versions of ROS. That's it.
So yeah, Docker is great for those cross-version runnings, for running multiple versions of things. I caution you, and I don't know about this, and I don't know whether it applies to ROS2, but in ROS1, messages had a checksum attached to them. And so messages, even though they had the same type, that were built differently, like under different versions, or, you know, they checked, you know, like each end would check that the message was compatible, had the same checksum, that it knew how to deserialize and serialize. So be wary of that.
Thank you. Noted.
Tom?
Okay. Paul, you had mounted your OAK light on your robot, and I was wondering what your intentions were in trying to use it. Are you going to try and do object detection, or just depth measurements, or what?
I don't know. I put it on there because the instructions, the original instructions said you should have a depth camera, but it turns out I still haven't figured out whether the nav stack really wants a depth camera or not, and I just don't know whether I'll need it.
I wondered if you were planning object detection, because if all you're doing is depth detection, that's a really expensive depth sensor.
Yeah. I don't know whether I'm going to need it or not.
Your LiDAR should tell you all of that anyways, right?
Yeah, right. But I don't know what dependencies might be hiding in the nav stack, because it can't make a point cloud out of line LiDAR, line scanning LiDAR. So, and I don't know if it needs one. Anyway, I'm not there yet.
Got it. Thank you.
There's a couple of other things that I think are worth saying about Linorobot, and I hope to do a monthly meeting presentation on it, because there's kind of a different audience at that meeting. But and that's why I was hurrying to try and get SLAM and all that jazz working. There's a Google Groups email list dedicated to Linorobot. Thomas Chu has a discussions forum on his GitHub, as well as the issues tracker, and he's very responsive to questions on that. And I just was looking at meetup.com and found a Linorobot and Gen AI meetup group, which I attended on Sunday. I don't know how worthwhile that's going to be. There were a couple of really experienced people, one of whom is in Houston, apparently, at the member of the Houston robot group. And they've had a lot more time, maybe, with Linorobot than I have. So I hope there'll be a resource. There's one other thing with explaining about Linorobot, which isn't delivered in the package as it exists today, which is simulation, gazebo simulation. So in the ROS1 system, they used to have the virtual dual of the physical robot, and you could run them side by side, you know, run it in gazebo and then run the real hardware, and it all ran the same stuff. Gazebo has been broken and is still fairly significantly broken in ROS2 Humble, but apparently things get better in ROS2 Jazzy. But Linorobot's Jazzy stuff hasn't been fully ported to, the gazebo stuff in Linorobot hasn't been ported to Jazzy yet. So that one is yet to be delivered, but it's a pretty full-fledged stack of ROS stuff that is fairly turnkey. I haven't had to do any programming at all so far, just modify a few configuration files to tell it about my particular, except for fixing the bug. That was some I finally got to do a little programming, but anyway, that's what I had. So with that, Karim, I don't think
I don't think Mickey ever came back or joined tonight.
No.
Gasoline be a good lubricant for our slides? No. WD-40?
I'm on a meeting, guys.
Oh. Didn't realize that.
So I think we're ready to roll into open mic, unless someone has something else.
I have an open mic thing that might be fun.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're doing the camera panel the other
Panel,
day.
yes, and thank you for your support of that.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I was thinking about was, well, I got a one of the Halo 8Ls Raspberry Pi AI hats.
Wow.
And that's 13 tera operations per second, or 13
Ooh.
flops.
Ooh.
So, you know, I said, "Ooh, that'd be interesting." And so anyway, I got it to run at least one of his examples. Okay. So otherwise, I got all of the dependencies down, got one of the examples, and a lot of the stuff seems very immature still. You know, there's a lot not as smooth and documented as some of the other products that I've messed with, but it's getting there. And the one thing that I would like to there was a so here's my tale. Don't do as Doug did. So Doug, said, "Oh man, I got it now." Well, to do the next bit, I've got to have some sort of Linux machine, because I've always been skirting around the around the edges of Linux. Okay, so I had two options. I have a little tiny 13th generation Celeron NC 150. One of these 3x. What are these? I don't know if you can see it, because I can't see it.
No, it's below the camera. Hold it
Yeah.
up high. Higher, higher, higher.
Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, one of the low end.
Yeah, one of these little boxes. You've seen
Nick?
those.
Oh, yeah.
So I had that option, and then I thought, well, wait a minute. Maybe I can do some upgrades to my PC desktop that I've been waiting to do for a long time, because I'm always running on the last 1 or 2% of the hard drives. Everything is, no matter how big it is, I fill it up to the brim, and so I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead. I mean, I have the parts, I'll just put them in. So that required cloning a SSD, and apparently something went wrong with that. And so I said, well, no big deal. I'll just put the old one back in. It was running. I just took it. All I did was take it out and put it back in. Well, now that's not running. So I've got a couple of days of doing that, so I might not have anything to show. But so anyway, if it works, don't screw with it. I guess that's the lesson on that.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to I think I'm going to do what my intended, and I would like to hear some input on this. Okay, so I don't want to dual boot if I can avoid it, because and I really don't want to have a Linux machine and a Windows machine. What I really wanted to do is I have a couple of options. I do have I think it's a 3060 in NVIDIA, so I could use do some local machine learning. But what I wanted to do is put WSL2 on it. And has anybody had any experience with that? Is that like a pain in the butt, or does it work okay?
I did WSL years ago, but I've seen people on YouTube using WSL2, and I think they've been having pretty good success with that.
Okay.
It's pretty solid now.
It may be pretty solid, but I had a heck of a time when I was doing that ROS2 class, and I tried to get it working on Windows under WSL2, and I never could get the ROS to work properly under WSL2.
I got ROS to work properly. Yeah.
Really? Under WSL2?
Yes.
There was an update. I don't remember when it was, but there was a not ancient update that made a big difference to WSL2. But yeah, it's I was able to get it to work.
Yeah.
Well,
that was run Gazebo and Arviz and all that.
Oh, yeah. I guess my experience is about a year old, so I guess they fixed some stuff.
Yeah, well, that's why, like I say, that's why I decided to upgrade my drives in my computer, was because I was running so close to the edge that I said, if I put WSL2 in there and it started taking resources, I'd probably be bouncing against the full drive all the time. So I decided, I just put a new drive in there. Man, I can't understand why it's screwed up. Now, let me ask another question. I can Google this, but a question since this is talk. Okay, I probably did not put the same SATA cables into the same drives. Does that make any difference? I always thought any SATA went to any SATA, it wouldn't matter. But anybody got any idea? I'm trying to figure out why the thing didn't stop working.
I think it matters, but
Oh,
I'm not
God.
sure.
Okay. Well, I only got 6 of them. Let's say 6 to the squared, 36 possibilities. We'll see how it goes. All right. Mike, that was not the answer I wanted to hear, but we'll see. Okay.
Doug, have you considered running Linux on a virtual machine?
I did, but I was not. I was wondering if that would be actually more of a problem.
And that
More of
uses
a-
more resources. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to dedicate some memory and a processor to it.
Yeah.
But typically, when you're running Linux, you're not running your Windows apps, and that's what I do. I use it on my work machine as well.
Yeah.
So I use software that in Linux,
Mhm.
and I run a virtual machine, and I dedicate 1 or 2 processors and like cores and some memory to that
Yeah.
to that virtual machine, and I typically don't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
I did for a little bit, and Microsoft put out an update, and it was Teams that was causing actually a crash with VirtualBox.
So what virtual machine are you using?
I'm using VirtualBox.
Okay.
So VirtualBox is a free download.
Yeah.
You can put it on. I have, give you an example. I'll share my screen just to show you.
Yeah.
Share entire screen, screen 1, there. So there is my VirtualBox.
Yeah.
And I run a number of different things. So all of my programming software, my Rockwell automation software, is running in a virtual machine. I use it all the time, inside, outside. I run a TeamViewer for clients. I run in a virtual machine. I don't have to update it. It stays at a lower version that I need. I have a Linux Mint machine I use, Linux for testing. I have Windows 11 Pro that I've been using to test existing software on Windows 11 versus Windows 10 because it's coming to end of life. I do that a lot.
How do you handle that license?
For which?
For the 11. So I'm
Windows
assuming your box is a 10.
My
Windows
box
10.
is a 10.
Yeah.
So in here, this is basically you set it up as a machine. So my system, I have I've allowed 32 meg out of 64 meg of RAM. I've allowed 6 cores. Out of 24 cores or whatever is on this box, I've allowed 12. Sorry.
Okay.
Right to the hairy edge. So I'm running Windows on a Windows system.
Yeah, but what I'm wondering is, did you have to put in? How did you handle the Windows 11 license? Is what I'm getting.
WindowsHQ.com. I pay about $10 US for a license.
Okay, so you just bought a license, and
I just bought a license and licensed it to that virtual machine.
Okay.
If you want to, you can take that license and you can log this virtual machine into your Windows account. If you have it logged into your Windows account, you could blow away the virtual machine and you can basically reuse the license again.
Yeah.
For the cost, I just leave it. I share my virtual machines with my coworkers. So I'll give them a copy of the virtual machine. They upload it.
Yeah.
And they install it on their PC, and it'll basically say, hey, because you say I moved it. When you move it over, and it'll say, okay, Windows gives you a grace period, and then you need to find a license for it.
Yeah.
And it works good. If you're running Linux, you don't have any issues. There's no license for it.
Hey, how did you get a $10 license to run Windows in a VM?
How do let me stop sharing. Let me go. find.
I've seen those licenses on Groupon, Paul.
Oh yeah,
Here in Dallas. So,
HQ keys.
HQTs. What's that mean?
HQ keys. I'll put a link in. Let me.
Oh, HQ keys.
HQ keys.
Oh.
Where's our Windows MVP? Am I going to get in trouble for this?
I don't know. He was on earlier.
Well,
I'm not going to rat on you if that's what you're asking. I don't. Those $10 licenses. There's some. There's some people talking about that. I think there was something in there. They are real licenses, but they're like from resellers.
Yeah,
they're supposed to be attached to hardware somewhere, and for some reason they're not. And they it's a little bit hinky, but ain't nobody gonna come after you. You know.
Yeah. So that's what I do, and like I say, I use a virtual machine for a few years. And, you know, we update software, we rebuild the virtual machine. So I build these virtual machines, and sometimes I'll spend 2 days building a virtual machine, loading automation software on it. So it's well worth the time to, you know, share the machine and everything else. So that's what we do. Yeah. And then my group, we just go out and we buy the keys on the
I guess the question I would have is, if I wanted to use CUDA, you know, NVIDIA CUDA,
yeah.
Can that be done on a virtual machine? I know on the WSL2 you can. It'll work. That was one of the things that I was wondering.
If it'll work on WSL2, I believe it'll work on a Linux machine you can load. Like, you can load Ubuntu, you can load whatever you want in the virtual machine. Yeah. If you're running it natively on your computer, you're using all the cores available.
Okay.
If you're running it in a virtual machine, you're going to limit it to a certain number of cores.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, depending what you're going to do. So, if you're looking at running it like that little square PC you showed.
No. That was never the intent. I mean, the intent was that if I was going to do something with that, I'd just get another hard drive, a little, you know, because they're little M2 drives. Just just put a new one in and make it Linux, and it would be a Linux machine. But the problem is, for what I want to do with Linux, that's not really. I don't want to just run Linux to run Linux. That's not my interest. I want to do some specific tasks in Linux.
Okay.
I want to do some modeling and some transferring. So because I have the attention span of a gnat that's on drugs, you know, I got to be able to switch from Windows to Linux to Windows to Linux, because, like I say, I'm not, you know, that's why I don't want to dual boot. I don't want to just be one or the other. I want to be able to slide back and forth.
So I have a dual monitor set up on my desktop. I got a docking station with dual monitors.
Yeah.
I run my Linux virtual machine or whatever, my virtual machine on one window, and my desktop version essentially in the other window, on the other screen. And I bounce back and forth between the two.
Go ahead, Bruce. What did you say?
I have a KVM switch, so I can switch between my Linux system, and I have dual monitors, and I've also connected my Hi-Fi to the dual monitors through the KVM switch, and so I can just switch back and forth.
That's I have used KVMs in the past. Pat, on your situation where you have the virtual machine and the other, you don't need a KVM, do you?
No, I work on both of them at the same time. So I'll have a spreadsheet open with a whole pile of PLC tags and stuff on one computer, and I don't have Microsoft Office on my virtual machines. So, and then on my virtual machine, I'll have my PLC program software running.
Gotcha. So all you do is like click with a mouse from one window to the next?
Yeah, I can copy and paste between, you can set it up so you can copy and paste through the clipboard.
Okay, sounds like that might be the solution. Well, sounds like a trip down to Micro Center when I finally burned this thing to the ground. So, trying to change a hard drive. I can't believe it. I just totally can't believe it. Makes me feel old.
So, were your
Maybe
hard
I'm-
drives like in a RAID array or anything? Were they mirrored or?
No. I haven't lost any. I literally connected. I had a one of these USB to SATA converters, and I just used the Samsung Magician software to just copy the thing. Now, I possibly have made a mistake there, because I read up on the web that one of the things that you can do is you can accidentally only clone the primary partition, and if you do that, then the other one won't boot. Okay, so that could be a problem. But why I couldn't just plug the old hard drive back in and it wouldn't work now it wouldn't work. That's a different situation. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is the SATA cables must, because I wasn't very careful about, I just kind of yanked them all out and put the drives in and then plugged them all back in. So
that may be a UEFI boot issue with your.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. But why would it be on the old drive? Should have just been able to plug the old drive in and it should have worked.
Plugged into the same hole, right?
Yeah. So can you bring up a boot menu? I don't know if Windows has that, a boot menu, and you can select. It'll give you a list of drives that you.
Yeah,
can boot.
well, that's the other thing that's a little weird. The list of drives shows up as being connected, but it doesn't show them as boot drives. It shows that they don't have a boot sector or something. They're not booting on. I can't, I got something weird.
Your old drive doesn't show a boot sector?
No, or something. And like I say, I literally, all I did was unplug it, and I actually pulled the plug off the machine first. So it wasn't a case of like a hot swap or anything. It's just, I don't know. I'm a little baffled. I'll get it tomorrow probably. I figured there's some really nice machines down there at Micro Center for a couple K. This will be the expensive. Oh shit! So we'll see how it goes. I can't really argue. This machine's been running since 2008, so I can't really complain too much. So. Yeah.
I just realized the other day that I've been running Linux as a main daily driver since 2004.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway, but back to the Halo. It looks like it might be fun to see, but what I'd really hoped was to have it trained on cones, so that we could compare like an Oak Delight to this and see how they did.
Even a spec comparison would be great, because I don't think
I don't know if they're aimed exactly at the same target. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's going to be a lot faster. All right. It might handle bigger images, but I don't know if it's going to be a lot faster. We'll just have to see. The other thing that's kind of cool is they also have a 26 tops shield for $30 more, which they didn't have available when I ordered this, or I would have gone for it. But anyway, kind of cool. Not the best situation in the fact that it does use your PCI slot bus, and so that means that you're either going to have, if you want to use an SSD, you got to do it through a USB port. So anyway, See how it goes. But I did see, what did Dad find there?
So there's a PCI hat. Oh, apparently I returned mine. But there's a PCI hat, and it's like $29. And from your Pi, you run a flat cable to it, and then you have 4 slots.
Okay. If you got that, Bruce, if you could put that in, I might see it. Now, do you know if they're cutting this? I think, how's this go? I think it's a PCI 2, but it really will do a 3. But I got a board that went to from 1 to 2. Like,
yeah, I think this was 3. It's available on Amazon.
Yeah, see, this one supposedly has 2 slots, but I think they share the bus. So there's I can't think of the right word. Not an interpreter, I guess a controller that's switching them back and forth. I don't know if how that would impact the Halo 8. And that's another thing. If you get the Pi is doing a lot of weird stuff. So like on my Halo 8, it's actually a Halo 8L module stuck into an M.2 slot. But they also making versions of this, the Raspberry Pi AI, that it's actually physically in the hat, and you can't use it for anything but, the Raspberry Pi. Not that I would, but I'm just saying this. So if you want it as a separate module, you need to look at what you're ordering very carefully. So, yeah. So anyway, we'll see.
Well, that'd be right in on the target of the smart cameras. I think Doug it's like,
yeah. Well, I can get a computer running. I might be able to do something with it.
Yeah. If you're done with that, I've got a follow-on question from a couple of weeks ago when I was having trouble with my 3D printer and slots that I wondered if I could seek your guys' opinion on.
Slots?
What slots?
So, Karim, you said that slices treat internal holes differently than external holes, and I have are you all seeing this table?
I wouldn't say I know what an external hole is, but I get yeah,
Sorry.
perimeters.
Isn't this supposed to be a family-friendly thing? So we don't need to do that.
External dimensions versus internal dimensions of voids.
Sure. Yes.
Are you guys seeing this table that I'm sharing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I printed out, it was a lid of a box, and so it was a rectangular box with a rectangular hole in the middle of it. And
right.
The external X size was spec'd at 100 millimeters on the drawing, or on the, in the model. It actually ended up being 99.6. I went through and did a calibration on the printers. I printed out the calibration cubes and made a couple of changes to bring it in, and you'll see that I think the external is pretty close to bang on. Here it's minus 0.4 off. I don't know if that's too much off, but
that's pretty usual. I think when I'm doing screws, I don't know about on 100 millimeter hole, but on a 3 millimeter here.
Yeah,
what you might be looking for. I mean, I'm sorry. I know you got a whole presentation here, and I don't mean to be jumping in, but I'm going to jump in. There's something out there called XY hole compensation. I'm not sure, depending on your slicer.
Oh,
what you can do is what you can do is it's another, you got 11 million things you can change on your slicer, right? Some of them matter depending on where you are, what you're doing. But they have an XY compensation so that if you find you're like that box in the middle is always a little bit too off by like your 0.4, then you go down, you do an XY expansion on it, and the slicer will correct for that as it goes.
Oh,
okay.
Thank you.
This is the right step to calibrate it and see what it's actually doing.
Yes, saying all that, if you calibrated your printer with a 20 by 20 cube, which most people do, that means you can print a 20 by 20 cube really well. Anything off of that, it's going to move. It's going to change. Because what happens is, as soon as you get close to that, that's fine. Let's say you're off by 1/10, like a couple thou from on a 20 by 20 millimeter cube. You span that to 100 by 100 and move around a little bit. That's going to change a little bit. So what happens is with plastic, it contracts as you're doing the thing. As you're printing it down, when it cools off, it'll contract down. And those internal holes, the way they are, tend to contract more. And so there's, if it's in Cura, Chep CHEP is a YouTube channel, did a whole thing on the XY compensation a couple of years ago, and I think it's still valid today. It's I forget which option it is. I haven't looked at it for a long time, but I used to set that all the time because I had those holes in there, like for screws and all that kind of stuff. I mean, once you get used to your printer, you just say, that's going to be 0.2 mils too small if I do it the way it tells me to do it. So I'm going to make it 0.2 mils big, and I just do that in my head as I'm drawing it out. But you don't always have that chance if you're printing somebody else's model. You don't have that. And so that's what that's for. So you can do an XY compensation. So it'll spread out the X and Y for the internal holes, because it can sense an internal hole, like you're saying, the slicer can, and it'll do that compensation in an XY motion for you.
Well, thanks for that, Harold. I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I wish I could just tell you the exact thing to go and see and go, yeah, go over to this, go to this area, and that right there is what you're doing. But one, I haven't messed with it in a while. Two, I'm a little tired. And three, if I could remember all this stuff, I'd be a genius. But so I can't remember it all.
Videos posted in the chat.
Did you get it?
Yeah. Paul, are you printing, really slow for fine resolution, or are you doing quick prints, or?
Yeah, that happens.
Because that has a big influence on that too.
It does.
Oh, really? I don't know. I'm just
God,
doing whatever the standard speed is. I didn't.
Okay. And I think, like Harold said before, buy yourself a set of metric drill bits. So if the holes are too small, just drill them out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got that all over the place. You just, if they're a little too small, you clean up. A lot of times with the plastic not going where it always, like I said, it doesn't always go where you want it to go. So, to clean that out, that's just a common thing you do. You just drill a hole, clean up the hole. So
this was for a square slot that a regulator needed to drop into.
Okay.
And the hole ended up being too small. Had to file it out, and I was like, "Damn it! It's like 0.4, and I'd left about 0.3 millimeters of slack. So I thought, surely I'll be okay, but no.
Yeah. Shrinkage.
I seen.
Go ahead.
Oh, I think he froze. You froze, Mike. I don't know what happened.
Oh, I seem to file stuff too. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know if you've ever looked at the holes. The holes are actually composed of like straight line segments, so it's not like an ultra smooth circumference on the hole. That's the way it's printed. So that's gonna start to eat into the interior of the hole.
Well, that depends on how fine your export of your STL is.
Right.
Yeah, and there are
give it enough geometry, it's not going to notice that.
There are some G codes where you could do arcs and stuff, depending on a couple of things that I've seen. So they will tell the thing to do an arc, but that arc then gets broken down, right? So in those straight lines, because unfortunately that's how it works. No, but
that's why everybody just says, just it takes usually 3 times for you to get the design exactly the way you want it.
Here's the deal, Paul. You keep working on your printer, working with the same printer, right? Doing the same things, and you get used to it, and you'll know that this hole. Yeah, there you go. The Ryobi fix. There you go.
That's right. Step.
Step drill
bits
anything,
for
right?
electric holes.
Step bit. So you'll get used to, as you're doing your own models, that I need this hole this big, so I'm going to compensate in my head. Now there's a on Maker's World. There's a cat about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago now. You got to go to his store to buy it, but it costs $0. And it's a set of threads, thread holes, caps, all the things that you would do for using to put parts together and screws and all those sorts of things. It's got like 8 or 10 of them. I have to go look it up and find it. I don't have it handy with me. And then what you do is you print that on your printer and have those set of things set beside it. So when somebody says I need a 3mm hole for a bolt, right, that I'm going to thread out or want it to pass through, your choice, you've got an example of what your printer is going to do, holding in your hand with a bolt that's going to hold in your hand, and you try it out. That's the idea. I don't have it close. So Maker's World, and it was pretty popular in a video thing about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months.
I remember that one, Harold. I can't.
I'd go to print them out. I really was, and I just hadn't got around to print them all out to do that because I think it's a wonderful idea, especially when you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out, you're dealing with real world stuff, and you got all the real parts, and you got to have the printer print the thing to meet the real parts. You got to do a little compensation. You just always do. You always have to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So Doug remembers. So you know what I'm talking about, right? It seemed like a good idea to have around.
Yeah, I did. I think I even downloaded some of the files.
Yeah.
So, but where they went, and how I labeled them, who knows?
Yeah, but you got them stored safely. I know.
Well, I would do it. They're on that hard drive that I can't access, so who knows?
Oh no.
But that's the least of my worries.
Well, this is my switch from my robot that broke.
Oh wow!
So it's an emergency switch. See how you do it.
Oh. Yeah.
What
did happen? Did they stomp on it, Mike?
Well, somehow the theater. This is the one that broke, but I just replaced it.
Yeah, but
they look pretty heavy, so I'm not sure how the theater people broke it, but it just doesn't turn on and off anymore. So
I'm sure they broke it with gusto.
Robot?
Huh? Pardon?
Were they trying to stop the robot?
Well, this is the on-off switch, but it's also the emergency stop. But they just had a hard time twisting it to turn it on, and they just turn and twist.
Okay. So they broke the return back on
the mechanism. Somehow the mechanism here.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put it back in and have a switch again instead of this is the connector on it. Here's this. Whoops. Trying to figure out how to do it. There it is. That's just a standard, remote control connector, JST2.
Yeah.
So I just stuffed some aluminum foil into the other end of this, and I just turn it on and off with the battery right now. Plug the battery in and out.
So I'm not the only one.
Battery connector switch. Yeah.
Right.
I have one of those.
Yeah, because this controls like 100 milliamps to a relay that then controls the 50 amp relay. So this isn't the whole battery thing. It's just the relay controller.
Yeah.
Turn it on and off.
It was a really thought-provoking play.
Thank you.
Yeah. So is it over now, Mike?
This weekend.
Oh, okay.
Last weekend. Then the horrible thing does. I got to tear it all down and put it away and organize it and repair stuff and
Yeah. And are they going to another city after that?
Eventually it's supposed to. Yeah.
Okay. So are you going with it to put it back up, or you just put it in a box and ship it to somebody?
Oh, I would go with it. Oh, my robot? Oh.
Well, no, the whole thing, the lights, everything.
Oh, well, we rented the lights, so we have to go put it back together, and a new space would be different, so it'd be a lot of different designs.
Yeah, gotcha.
But hopefully, the basis of it, like it uses a computer controller called QLab on a Mac, and it's theater control software, and so the Mac was controlling all the mixer and sending the files to the mixer and controlling all the mics to switch them from one speaker to another, and also sending commands to another Mac that had all the projectors on it, and another computer that had all the lighting on it. So this one Mac was the control center for it all, and had about 500 commands or cues in it.
Hmm.
So we had to get it all running smoothly, and that took forever. Yeah.
So did you spend a ton of money on gear for this show, or?
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to rent projectors, but they cost way too much. So we found we bought used ones for about the same price of renting them. Same thing with some speakers. We needed more speakers, so they were really expensive to rent. So I found some used ones, and so now I got more junk to store. Yeah. Yeah, but the lighting in itself was like $7,000 to rent the lights.
Ooh.
Yeah. So,
I think I read in the one of those online articles you pointed us to that they put the whole show on for $50K, which is not bad, really.
Yeah. I mean, the actors get paid real well. I mean, compared to community theater stuff. Mm-hmm. That's most of the pay, most of the expenses, the actors.
Really?
And support and stuff. But yeah. People cost.
Oh.
All right. Well, I just wanted to show you the switch since I talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else anyone's got going on or discovered new stuff or whatever? If not, maybe we'll call for last call. Going once.
I'm out. All right.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
All right, night.
Later, folks.